Absolutely. Listen, forgiveness, that is essential in the concepts that are there. And that's something we don't do very often. It's one thing to forgive others, but forgiving ourselves, right? That's such a hard thing. That's why we have this rumination about what we did in the past, the harms, laying people down, or maybe the atrocities, whatever it may be. But it's like forgiving yourself and moving on is so important to make tomorrow a better day than yesterday.
Your stories, your service, your community. This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
Alphas, welcome to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast. We're here to engage today's veterans through authentic stories, education, and entertainment. We're building a virtual community that celebrates continued service and supports the American Legion's mission. We're glad you're here to be part of the community.
All right, today, in honor of American Heart Month, we have a special encore episode. Last year, we met interventional cardiologist Dr. Columbus D. Batiste. He served as assistant clinical professor and the regional chief of cardiology for the Southern California Permanente Medical Group, as well as spending 6 years working at the VA medical centers. Joe, Stacy, what do you remember? What sticks out to you about our time with Dr. Batiste?
I was just about to say, I loved that interview because I've often argued with friends of mine that your food affects your stress. And the fact that he touched upon that and we got to have a conversation and I got, confirmation of that is just one more reason why we should be really at least trying. I mean, it's awful that comfort food is generally the worst for both our physical and mental health. And I'm not going to say don't eat chicken and dumplings because, man, sometimes that really hits the spot. But good food makes good brain. So
yeah, I agree. I think that was one of the biggest takeaways that I got as well is you are what you eat. And sometimes those foods that make us happy aren't what keep us healthy. And that, is always really important to think about what we're doing and putting in our mouths and how it reflects in our daily lives.
like short-term versus long-term happiness.
Mm-hmm.
But Dr.
Well, I
Batiste,
tell you
that was a
what,
fantastic
I ate
interview.
everything that I saw over the holiday break, and I'm really happy. But now I'm fasting, and I'm really unhappy. So there's that. Okay, Alphas, please stick around. We'll be back with our encore episode with Dr. Columbus Batiste right after the break. You don't want to miss it.
Identity theft usually doesn't start with a headline or a warning. It starts with small disruptions. A credit card gets declined. A bill shows up for something you never bought. An account is locked because someone else tried to access it. By the time you realize what's happening, the cleanup can take weeks or even months. That's why people use Aura. Aura is an all-in-one online safety solution built to help detect and stop identity theft and fraud early. Aura monitors the dark web for leaked emails, passwords, and social security numbers, and sends real-time alerts if your information is exposed. And if identity theft does occur, Aura's white glove fraud resolution team works directly with you to help lock your credit, contact financial institutions, and guide you through the recovery process from start to finish. Aura is offering Tango Alpha Lima podcast listeners with a special offer of up to 75% off. Visit buy.aura.com/tango to get started. That's AURA.com/tango. Certain terms apply. See site for details.
Today, we're joined by interventional cardiologist Dr. Columbus Batiste. Dr. Batiste, welcome to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
Hey, thank you. It's good to be here. Good to see
Doc.
you. Hey,
Can I call you Doc? Is that okay?
I love it. That's what the
Nice.
nurses call me. Makes
Awesome.
makes me feel at home.
Well, thank you. And welcome to the show. It's so wonderful to have you.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Obviously, I really dug into your story, your history, your tremendous long list of accolades. I read that you are the sixth child in your family. Is that right?
That is correct. I am what I like to characterize as the pleasant surprise.
Okay. Were you the last of the surprises, or
I was the last. I was probably the only surprise, but that's okay. I'm gonna take it.
Nice.
I love to start the show and let the alphas know a little bit about our guests, but I'd like to hear it from your own words. What are some of the things that we wouldn't necessarily read from your bio? Some of the crazy stuff that
Your
Crazy.
darkest secrets, if you will.
yeah.
My God.
Other
Well, I
than
don't know.
other than you carry bamboo sticks in your trunk wherever you go.
I will tell you that I am an avid Dallas Cowboys fan. That may
Woo!
be
Go
easy.
Cowboys.
It's a rough
Yes.
Okay.
life.
Oh no, come on now. It's America's team now. I am a staunch Los Angeles Lakers fan as well.
Okay.
And believe it or not, something no one would ever know, although I admire him and he's now one of my greatest. When I was growing up, my favorite basketball player was actually not Magic Johnson, but was James Worthy.
Nice. Okay. So
Oh,
So
did you
most
play
people wouldn't even guess him.
did you play sports in school, high school, college
More in
at all?
my head, more in my head. You know, as you
Mm.
get older, the older you get, the better you were, they say. That's what the saying says. So
Okay.
I was great. I was magnificent back in the day. No, I was.
yeah.
So
I
actually,
feel
I
like
grew up in Dallas.
the older I get, the more my joints hurt just thinking about it.
Mm,
But
Yeah.
okay.
I grew up in Dallas, Fort Worth. So I just remember in elementary school, Troy Aikman would win the Super Bowl every year. Emmitt
Yes.
Smith would run for the touchdown. So I said, Cowboys win the Super Bowl every year. What's the big deal? And
Well,
then, and then there was the 30 years after that.
Oh, true.
well, I'm not even gonna say anything about you making me feel bad by saying when you were in elementary school they were winning. I was in med school when I was watching that. Thank you very much. I
If
mean,
it makes you feel
so
any better,
you welcome
you
me
look
into
younger than
Hey,
him.
welcome
it
me
doesn't
into the
matter
show
how
to make me feel horrible,
Well
right?
done,
it doesn't
Joe.
matter how you celebrate a Cowboys Super Bowl victory. You just
Yeah,
celebrate it.
Doc, if it makes you feel better, you look 20 years younger than Adam. No worries.
It makes
Smoke.
me feel better. Thanks, Stacey.
No,
We're not here to
listen,
butter your biscuits.
I think Holly probably put a little extra shine on mine to make me look younger. That's all it is. I'm gonna
Oh,
give it up to
nice.
Our
Holly.
super producer
Yes.
will never hold punches. So you look good in your own right, Doc. Own it.
Yeah.
So tell us.
I keep moving. That's how I keep. People think I look young because I just never stop. They don't get to see the wrinkles if I never stop moving.
Hey, I'm saying that's wise. That's smart.
So obviously you went to med school and you became a cardiologist. Tell us a little bit about what that transition. Why cardiology?
Yeah. So, I mean, going back to that whole sports love, I actually wanted to be a Lakers team doctor growing up.
Oh, okay. That
And
makes sense.
so that's what I wanted to do. And then when I was in college, I actually went and did an externship at University of Virginia. And I got to hang out with this cardiologist. It wasn't anything all crazy, but I just fell in love with the heart and everything just started connecting and resonating. And you tend to gravitate in life to the things that come easier to you. Right. And so I love the physiology of the heart. I love the anatomy of the heart. It just made sense, the mix with technology. And so it became a passion and something I wanted to do ever since my sophomore year in college, actually.
Wow,
That's really
cool.
interesting.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, when people talk about this kind of stuff, they don't really talk about the blessing of opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have went your whole life and you could have been wrapping joints with ace bandages and not really realize that was something that resonated with you. My example being I was a Navy corpsman and I didn't realize that I had a heart for serving veterans and Marines for being a caregiver until I got an opportunity to do that. And just like you, it just resonated in my heart and in my spirit. It just really meant something to me. And so, I 6 years with VA Medical Center, I personally consider that service.
Yes, it
Because
is.
that's no joke.
No.
But I think I can speak for the others, when I say that. But we love people that serve and people that take care of our veterans, and so we love that side of your story, obviously. And it's never too late. If you really want to go back and be with the Lakers, man, I'm sure they could use the help.
I'm hoping they don't have heart problems. But
No,
Joe,
maybe not.
I have to add to what you said because I will tell you, we are all such a sum of our experiences.
Mhm.
And so I'll never forget someone who showed kindness to me working at the Veterans Administration when I was in college. And I had an opportunity to round once again in cardiology in the cardiac rehab program out in Los Angeles at the large Veterans Administration. And those seeds that were planted, I tell you, I actually recently gave her flowers. She's in her 80s now. She was a nurse and told her that led to me really developing the program that I developed within my organization of delivering cardiac rehab to now about 45,000 patients since 2018. And so you never know what the results are of what you do for others. Just extending a little bit
Mhm.
of grace, a little bit of opportunity. And the power of giving back is so phenomenal. I mean, we'll talk about that later on, but it's incredible. The act of service is not for the other it's for the other person, but really it does so much for us.
You said she was a nurse at the VA?
Yes.
What
Yeah.
do you remember her name?
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Well, I called her Mimi. I'm trying to think of what her real name was. Her first,
Okay.
that was like almost like a nickname for her. And it's
I
going to
had
come.
nicknames, but I can't repeat them.
We'll call her Nurse Mimi. Thanks, Nurse Mimi.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was phenomenal. Was there for years at the LA Wadsworth VA.
It's funny though, because when you're the type of person that takes care of others, that can lead people to neglect their own health needs. And so
Yes.
like, and I've always thought about that as like, we're supposed to be an example to each other, and that prioritizing our health is an act of service. It's a way to ensure that veterans are able to continue doing what we do. Half the time when we have people that struggle with mental health and stuff like that, they keep going for their family, and there's a physical component to that. And so in your situation, you get an opportunity to circle back around to someone that had an impact, because what's beautiful is sometimes you don't realize that you had a core memory until weeks, months, a year later, 3 years later. And you go, looking back, I can say that nurse Mimi was a driving force in my life. And
Yes.
you might not have been able to pick up on that, but taking that time to sort of circle back around to her and give her that acknowledgement is a beautiful thing to do. And I'm so glad you got an opportunity to do that. I think that there's a way to do that, and encouraging other people to sort of prioritize thanking other people and acknowledging that stuff. I think that it's beautiful. There's a huge problem with us not taking care of ourselves, though. We just tend to sort of like focus on others,
Yeah,
especially as caregivers in general.
absolutely. I mean, when you look at, I love the statement that not everything that counts can be counted, right?
Mm,
So in medicine and care delivery, we don't count the small things like gratitude, like
Mm,
volunteering, like service. And those are just words that may resonate, that linger out there, but they have such profound impact on our body, on our cardiovascular system,
yeah.
our immune system, our inflammatory system, that when we express gratitude, what begins to take shape in our minds and our bodies and transforming our mind is nothing short of miraculous. So, I mean, we think as parents that, hey, I teach my kid to say thank you. Okay, yes, open the door, say thank you. It's more than being polite. There is actually truth to the concept that these moments of service, these moments of gratitude, the moments of volunteering are transformative. And so many studies demonstrate that. And they show a decreased burden in high blood pressure, decreased burden in heart disease, decrease in stress. And we know stress is through the roof right now,
Yeah.
or it probably has been forever, but it's more light is shown on it in today's day and age.
Hmm.
I think that if there's one thing that I can say is that our words have more power than we realize they do. And if you think they don't, spend a month being very careful how you talk about yourself and to yourself, and not to
Yes.
undermine compliments that people give you. It's a very tough thing to do. But on
Yes.
the backside of it, I think you'll find yourself in a completely different place.
Yeah.
well, I love this because I think this is things that you wouldn't normally think that you would be hearing from a cardiologist. And so I hear that there's a conventional, Western practice that was developed and cultivated, but then, something has emerged and changed along the way for you to understand and exist like this. And look, just looking at the statistics, right? So according to the CDC in 2022, 702,880 people died from heart disease, and that's one death every 33 seconds. Veterans in particular face higher risk due to the stress that we're talking about, service, the exposure to environmental hazards. So, thinking about the conventional and some of the things that you're talking about, the benefits of service and health, but kind of just like the real obvious question for America, and you can break that down in different communities is what happened? Like, what went wrong? Is RFK getting confirmed going to save us and save the, so what is it for you, and what have you seen? What did we get wrong, and what are the practical steps that we can start taking individually, collectively to get it right?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a loaded question. And I would reframe and push back and say, it's not so much about what we got wrong. Well, let's take the blame out of it. Let's take like the
Mhm.
idea, the concept that we're solely our independent actions have played a role in things. I mean, life happens. We know disease is something that progresses, that we're born and we die, and it's how we live in that dash mark that really matters. The question is, when we look at our food, we look at the industrialization of our society, right? And we've moved away from the toils of the earth, right?
Mm.
That we're supposed to do, and we're being active, and we've shifted functional activity to an indoor space that I'm exercising for 30 minutes, an hour, and that's my activity. The rest is sitting at a desk. That's a natural degradation, and that's the converse of the way that humans were built, were made and created. That our food has shifted from food that we actually can go and pick to then food we buy from others to now food that's made in factories. And instead of eating plants, we actually eat foods that are made in plants.
Mm.
And so we've shifted. Now we've taken, right? And this is going to resonate completely. MRCs, the concept and the theory of MRCs to make food that is sustainable out in the field in combat. We translated that into everyday space to make food that can last for eons on the shelf.
Mhm.
That's not how we were built to be made. Like we weren't made for that, right? So now we have the food that's different. We have the pollution, the environmental exposure, that we have the stress of life. We have the lack of activity. We have the niceties of life, the lights, the heat, the AC, our social media that keeps us going 24/7. We have television. I grew up now, Adam, you're too young to remember this, but once upon a time, there were only three stations on the TV, right? And so there weren't all these hundreds of billions of stations on there. So everything would turn to fuzz at a particular period of time. Nowadays, it's 24/7. So we don't have sleep. We don't move our body. We don't feed our body well. And then we ask ourselves, why is there so much disease?
Hmm.
So I think where I've come in life is that we have to learn to make convenience work for us, not against us. Convenience was made for man, not man for convenience. We need to transform that in its proper place. We have to re-engage with nature. We have to re-engage with animals. That's why emotional support animals have shown to be so much benefit, right? That's there. We have to re-engage in our communities. We don't have communities anymore. In my own neighborhood, I'm biggest to blame. I'm up early, I leave late, I come in,
Mm.
garage door goes up, it goes down, I'm in my house. We're not out, and so there's so many different aspects to play a role in why we see this. That's why, and I'll stop here and let you get a response. You're like, man, we're not going to ask this guy a question because he's going to go on for
No, this is
No,
5
I
great.
mean,
No, we
I
love
love
this.
it because I just had like 5,000 questions in that response alone. And I can see Adam's got questions. I'm like, I have so many questions. Anyway, carry on.
No, okay. So what I was going to say is that's why you're seeing so much research pour out about nutrition, about
Mhm,
isolation, about stress, about
mhm.
all these different things as we're identifying. Well, man, you start to think, I can't breathe or move without being at risk for something. And that's the reason
Yeah.
why.
Well, I think that was a wonderful job of, articulating all the things that, we're exposed to and things that, maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago were different, 100 years ago were different. And it's these culminating effects of all these things over time. And it's nobody's, there's no blame, to go around. We all have the blame. But also there's, a pathway from, maybe conventionality into kind of an alternate path of your own. So how did you kind of come to these understandings, and what was that like into how you're serving now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think really, I mean, there's a fork in the road for all of us, whether we choose which pathway we go down. I'm not going to give a shout out to this particular show, but I was really curious about this one show I watched on Apple TV. And this guy had like an alternative life, and his alternative self came back and tried to re-engage with his former self. Anyway, it was very interesting to me because we all take different pathways in life. And so for me, it was the death of my dad. And so early in my career, at that point, I was serving as chief of the department. I was triple board certified, and my dad just spiraled down. And he passed away as a result of diabetes and exposures to different things throughout his time in part military career and Korean conflict, other things, the stresses of life. And you look at him on the outside, looked like average guy, wasn't obese, didn't smoke, didn't drink, but just average stuff. And it really started to pour into like, what am I missing? What am I missing? It's like I prescribe pills, I do procedures. What am I missing? There's something that's a secret sauce I'm missing. And I started just pouring into the research. I had patients who would ask me questions that I was ill-equipped to answer. Doc, what should I eat? How should I move? What's going on? What do you think stress could play a role? I was ill-equipped because I had never studied this. This wasn't a part of my board certification or my fellowship training for general cardiology, my residency for internal medicine, my subspecialty fellowship in interventional cardiology. None of those things were a part of it. So I started pouring into the research, and it kind of made me like this oddball. That's the one interventional cardiologist who was into the foo-foo stuff as well, into nutrition and lifestyle and stress reduction and all the other components. But I revel in it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
The one thing that really intrigued me was obviously over the course of my pardon. Over the course of getting to know you and your background and researching for this episode, I went down a whole bunch of rabbit holes and followed your YouTube.
I hired a private
Sorry.
investigator.
Yeah. So in doing research for this episode and following down a few of the rabbit holes, I went on your YouTube channel and found the Slave Food Project conversation and got to see your wife's lovely face. And one of the conversations you were talking about was the sort of concept of the lower and lower middle class families being sort of predisposed to food addictions. And maybe I misinterpreted it because this is my brain just sort of kind of getting my head wrapped around it. And this is me maybe oversimplifying it too. And I had a little laugh because I tend to find humor in all things, but I come from that particular demographic.
Yes.
So low to middle class, and I lived in a single wide trailer. I didn't have a lot of money. Went to a lot of food banks. Lived on food stamps. A lot of government cheese, and this is where I was kind of laughing. I'm like, well, you had to have food to be addicted to it.
Sure.
And what food we did have wasn't anything you'd really want to go back for seconds. It was government cheese, hard to cut through, wouldn't want to melt. You didn't make mac and cheese out of it. And what pork we had came out of a can, and it was disgusting. So anyway, how does one become addicted to food in that demographic? And what are we talking about? What are these concepts? Help me understand food addiction in that concept.
Absolutely. Well, an addiction is a loaded term, right?
Okay.
And so when we say addiction, our connotation immediately, our mind goes towards drugs. It goes to alcohol, and we start to visualize in terms of a chemical addiction that begins to happen. And we think, well, how's that food? Food is something that I enjoy. Food is life. Food is family. Food is culture. It's just kind of who we are. My grandmother ate this. My granddad ate this. My parents ate this. This was good times. We have memories associated with it. And so you start to look at the psychological relationship with food, of the memories, the emotions that are tied to it, of the feelings of warmth and comfort that come and resonate. When I think of my dad, I think about an ice cream shop we would go and visit. I think about the smell of that ice cream shop. I remember how he loved soft serve, and he would have the pineapple on top, and he'd have the whipped cream and the cherry that was there. I remember those moments as a small child. Now, that's not addiction, but that ties me to it. So now if I were to go and partake of that, I have a sense of comfort. This comfort food, it comforts me during times of stress, during times of loneliness, during times of memory that I have that's there. Now you mirror that with the fact that the food has now moved, as we talked about earlier, and it's moved from the home where you prepare it. If you want to make a cake and cookies, you're actually whipping out the flour. You may not be grinding it, but you're taking the flour, you're doing all the stuff, making the cake or whatever it is. And now you go into a place where they make this in a factory for candy bars. They make the sodas, they make the chips, and that the food is actually tested in order to try and figure out, are people going to like it? Which people are going to like it? Are women going to like it? Are men going to like it? Are different racial groups going to like it? How much salt do I need? How much sugar do I need? Looking at the taste buds from a scientific perspective, can I mimic nature and really recreate this cherry cola flavor to mimic a cherry taste? And you start to think about all the chemicals that are there. And what is the goal of business? The business of business is indeed business
Is
to
that similar
sell
to like I'm sorry, is that similar to like
movies.
the spicy Doritos, movie they made recently? Was that on Netflix or whatever?
I
Have you
haven't
seen
seen that.
that?
I haven't seen that. I did read The Dorito Effect, a book called The Dorito Effect, but I have not seen that movie. That's interesting. So there's a movie on Netflix, not to
I
give them a
think
shout out.
I think it was, he might have been Latino American, but he was target they had
Oh, yes, I know what you're talking about.
okay, alright, they
It
were
was like
trying to
spicy
target a
Cheetos or
certain
something.
yeah, they were trying or maybe it was spicy Cheetos. They were trying to target a certain demographic. Anyway,
I haven't
workshopping
seen
yeah, how the food it was really interesting. Okay,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
it's interesting, but when you think of it, everything we do from any business, we all earn money for a living. Otherwise, we can't live, or you have at some point. And so you understand that in order for me to produce my business, whatever that is, I have to have clients. Now, I only have to go out looking for clients as an interventional cardiologist. They just happen, trust me, on a regular basis. That's there. But when I'm looking and I'm going down the food aisle, how do I choose which bag of chips or box of cereal that I'm going to get? There's marketing that goes into it. There's money that goes into it. Now, when you open it, what's going to make you want it? With that bite, that crisp, the taste, the flavors. And so this is not words that are just like some sort of like strategy or just I'm blanking on the word right now, some sort of skeptic type of scenario. This is actually there's science behind this. I first stumbled on this from Malcolm Gladwell's book and talking about a lot of the different aspects of the food science. And I started looking, and there is indeed a tremendous food science. So I won't. So even if you change it from food addiction to likability, to
Mhm.
desire, to why as a kid when they dropped me off at the library and next to another convenience store, I always wanted to go in and spend my allowance on a particular candy that melts in your mouth, not in your hands, right?
Right.
And it
Okay.
had a crunch factor, and I
And is
kept
an
going
excellent
back.
rapper.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I like that. Look at you. You're following right there. I love it. So yeah. So I mean, why was that? Well,
A
there's
Pavlovian response.
well, could be the combination of sugar, the combination of crunch, all of these different things play a role. So I think there is. I mean, I think that's the reason why convenient. That's why ultra processed foods they sell. That's why the majority of Americans are consuming ultra processed foods, and they're leading to a major issue in terms of our health, and they're keeping me gainfully employed.
And to add on to that, their job is to make money. It is not to make us healthy.
Not at all.
Their job is to make money. And I'll say that also, you've got these patients, they come in and they have to trust you. The good news is if you're not very good, it's not like they can tell people they don't make it. So there you go. A little bit of stress on your end, but
Yeah.
no, but all full joking aside, you see from what I've read, you've worked extensively with these communities that are disproportionately affected by these health disparities, and many veterans come from these diverse backgrounds or diverse. So how do we find ways to bridge the gap between this medical research and practical application? Because these comfort foods are comfort foods for a reason. These are things that we've attributed these emotions to, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier that when I'm training properly, my early meals are bigger, my later meals are smaller,
Yeah.
and my natural inclination though is to eat nothing and then eat 1,500 to 2,000 calories for dinner.
Yeah.
And I don't do well when I don't eat. I gain weight when I eat less. When I'm training, I'm eating 2,200 calories a day. When I'm eating like junk like I am now and putting on a pound or two a month, I'm eating probably 1,800 calories, but I'm doing it in like a sitting and a half.
Yeah.
How do we act on this in a way that, because, if you go to these communities, you're like, stop eating pork chops and fried salmon. Like, you're not going to get very far. Like, how do we make this successful?
Yeah, I think what I find is, so first I have to tell you in all honesty, most of my work is in a completely, it's probably not in the underserved population. It's probably the vast majority this day and age is in
Mm.
the middle to upper middle class that has the same constraints as the lower financially strapped class. And but I do volunteer work in that class more often in those communities. That's where
Okay.
I tend to do things. And to your point, there's so many. What you said was so loaded. So I'm gonna actually peel through that for a bit.
All right.
I think part of the reason why we as humans tend to do that, when we wake up, we have all of the wherewithal that we need to have. I'm going to do this, that. I'm going to be the best person ever, best husband, best spouse, best father, best worker. We start getting stressed with all the decisions we make, the burdens of the day. And all of a sudden we get worn down. We're tired. And now studies have shown that our decision making becomes compromised as our blood sugar shifts like that. We tend to desire things that we otherwise wouldn't when we're stressed like that. We tend to desire the fatty foods and sugar rich foods in periods of time. And so that's not very uncommon. When we look at individuals in this community, that's why I say it's a perfect crucible. That when you're dealing with stress and then you're dealing with the access to this food, what's in front of me, you will eat. And studies have shown that. If I buy a bushel of apples and kale and carrots, and I put inside of the crisper, but I have laying out on the counter chips and candy and everything else, what am I going to eat? I'm going to eat what I see, what's in front
Yeah.
of me, right?
And
And so,
easy.
yeah. And so when you go into communities where, listen, it's the business of business is business. So they want to make money and people want to buy it. So they're eating it. But I have fast food restaurants that are all around, and I have fast food that's inside of elementary schools and then junior high schools, and the vending machines and so forth. What am I going to have? I'm building a brand recognition. I'm building a new culture, right? I'm building a new culture that's
Yeah.
there. And so that's what begins to happen, I believe, with it. So my approach is not to completely vilify, but my approach is to kind of say, okay, what do you like to eat? Now let's see if we can tweak that slightly and make it a little bit healthy, right? Can we make it a little bit healthier? Can we make swaps? I'll never forget. I was down in New Orleans and I was driving around. It was during this they call it the Essence Fest. And so I was speaking on nutrition in New Orleans at this big basic large party, which is a no-go, right?
Yeah.
But that's okay. So I have this Uber driver driving me around. He's like, "Yeah, I checked you out, Doc. I know what you're about." And I was like, "Okay, so you ready to jump on board, eat healthy?" He was like, "Nah." Mm-mm. Literally an hour goes in. This man is not having it. I'm trying to use, he's like, "Oh, I have a son. He plays basketball." I was like, "Well, what about your son? You're not gonna feed him that." He goes, "No, he can't eat that, but I'm not eating what you're talking about either." And he would not relent until finally I convinced him to swap out one of the red meat, the pork sandwiches for something that was a plant source food. And he said, "Okay, I'll be willing to try this burger." Right. And for me, that was a huge win.
Yeah.
Because if he could make a slow step in the right direction, the law of 1% gain, he may be able to, in part, begin to open the door towards other opportunities. And that's what it's about. That decreases his burden. Because here's the thing. When you look at disease, what disease that strikes mostly in Americans, and we look at our rates of disability, and we're seeing this really impact during our working years of life.
Yeah.
So we're seeing this between the ages of 40 to 64 or so. When we see this happen, what happens? People go on disability. They stop working. This is the earning potential. Then they have an early death. Now the family's not left with any inheritance. Doesn't matter what color they are, what their background is. This is just what happens. Now they're strapped. My most powerful study, I'll tell you, situation was a patient of mine, and a Caucasian woman in her 40s. Now that she would be characterized as a frontline worker. She had teenage boys, had a heart attack, suffered a heart attack, and she could not make it to the appointments because she had to work during that period of time. I remember calling her, and whenever I would have thoughts about patients, something bad would happen. And I remember calling and getting her back in, and she would come in. It's like, I couldn't. She'd have another heart attack. Tried to refer her to cardiac rehab. She couldn't before she ended up passing away. And I remember I take all those deaths. I remember every patient who's passed away under my watch. right?
Hmm.
Almost like a coach who remembers every game he's lost, no matter how many he
Mhm.
wins. And I remember thinking, how did I fail this woman? I failed her because one, she needed care delivered in a way in which I was not equipped to deliver it to her at the
Hmm.
time she needed it, the way she needed it, within the constraints financially that were there. And that's really one of the things that led to me developing programs in a different structure of clinic and other aspects based upon that experience there. And I say that example to say is that there is stress, there is the impact of nutrition, the impact of lifestyle that impacts so many people across this country. And yes, I tend to target, like an interventional cardiologist, I target those people who are in the throes of a massive heart attack, who are the worst of the worst. But the message is for everyone, beyond a shadow of a doubt.
That's huge because, I think a lot of times it's easy to look back and see what you should have done differently. But I sort of have a theory that with every big thing that happens, you've branched off into a new human being that's better and has more information than the person you were before. So I can look back at 23-year-old Joe that was in Fallujah, and it's not fair for me to take 43-year-old Joe and expect my decision making out of him. He was a kid doing the best he could.
Yeah.
And so for you to be able to internalize that in a healthy way says a lot about your character, but is just massive because it's taking ownership of something without using it as an excuse to let it derail you, because it could easily. I mean, I'm sure that you remember their names for a reason. You don't do it because it makes you happy. You do it because it's important. Those people are important to you.
Yeah.
And that's huge. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that that's not a simple thing to talk about, and I do appreciate that.
Yeah. No, thank you for those words. It's not. And I'll tell you, as the core group of guys I work with who are interventional cardiologists, our first thought isn't what the tech next to us or the nurse did that someone else did wrong. It's like, what did I miss? Did I do something? What could have gone better as it relates to it? And that's just part of who we are. It's inbred in our training and who we are. And, when I look at situations like that, the reality of it is that I didn't get into this line of work to watch people pass away and to suffer. I didn't. And so my branching out into lifestyle is an extension of recognizing that 80% of a person's chances of having success in a health perspective lies outside the walls of my clinic. It
Hmm.
entails their relationships, it entails their environment, it entails their stressors, their financial, their food. That's really what matters. I can sit on a lofty. I mean, if our sole goal, right? I mean, Stacey, Adam, Joe, I mean, if our sole goal in life is just to collect toys and then pass away, that's a miserable life,
Yeah.
man.
Mhm.
That's a miserable life. Then we give it off to our kids who don't care and they throw it away. And I mean, who cares about the plaques and the accolades? Nobody cares. They don't care at all. So my feeling is that a true legacy is in how you interact with people, how you make them feel, that domino effect of small changes that they make that then may resonate. I'll share a happy story, and this one is I feel sheepish about it, right? So my next door neighbor told me that the person he works with, I treated, and the guy just admits that I saved his life. I tell people I don't save your life. I don't want to take the credit, and I don't want to take the blame. Number one. But this guy, as a result, my wife referred someone to their auto dealership, and he gave her a tremendous deal because she was associated with our family. And I don't even remember his name. I don't remember the situation there. I don't remember the words of advice I gave to him that resonated with him. But in my mind, that's what it's about. I don't need to. I don't need to be like, oh, yeah, I did a great job. I don't need that at all. It's just my purpose is to every person, every time, but I'm human. It's not.
Yeah.
You may have people
Mhm.
who watch this. They're like, I was treated by Batiste. Nah, he sucks. Oh, sorry. I mean, he's not great, and
No,
I
it's a
mean,
veteran-based podcast. We're pretty tame most of the time, but they do get flung out every once in a while.
yeah. I mean, but but I'm human, right? I'm not going to be perfect every day and have it, but I try to I'm trying to do the best I can every day with every patient, every time, and my family as well.
Well, I would say just listening to you, just agreeing so much, and just thinking about all the things that we experience with moving from Texas to southeast rural Alabama,
Mm.
having 3 kids in a rural school system. Recently, just did a 21-day liquid fast, and my kids took on a 21-day sugar fast, which was
Oh,
awesome.
wow.
And they're 7, 12, and 14, and so they're just oblivious to the amount of sugar that they consume. And it was really fun to see them, kind of go through the journey of like, my son ate this little peanut butter and jelly thing that they sent home with them. I said, look at the back of that. He said, where's the sugar? I said, in the jelly. He goes, Dad, there's sugar in everything. But, I think like the work that you're doing, being able to heal the individual, the mother, the father, so that they can come to these insights and revelations so that then they can practically take it in, for their family, to be the change and understand that. And there's also a real spiritual component that I hear coming through in your work as well, which, I think if you were to look at a conventional cardiologist and maybe say they would just look physiologically at the heart, but it's really a total physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual component, this kind of end-to-end holistic personal well care that emanates through you. How does the spiritual component play a factor in all this for you?
And it's everything. I mean, so personally for me, I'm a man of faith. That's at the center of my being and who I am and my belief system and what I believe is my strength in terms of going day to day and my hope. And I recognize and I'm respectful of everyone's belief system and where they're at. And my job is not to judge, but to hopefully shine a light on the power of this approach. And so that as a basis, we understand that the tools that we take for granted as small kids, perhaps if you're taught to pray or do this, that, and the other, and you just kind of do it, and you're doing these rote behaviors, but to actually begin to understand there's a psychological process, there's a neurochemical process that begins to happen. That when we begin to meditate and calm our minds, which is so important right now, right? Because our minds are constantly going. And we begin to quiet down the amygdala, the small portion of the brain that houses fear and anger and that reactivity, right? That inner diva that's there. We tone that down, that we begin to strengthen our prefrontal cortex where we reason and process things, that there's power in these moments. And so what I tell people is that even if you're not, quote unquote, a spiritual person, if we look at the Latin root of spiritual, spirit, the Latin root is spiritus, which is breath. And we understand that when we get stressed, what don't we do? We don't breathe well. We don't inhale and exhale, allow the diaphragm to have the excursion that it needs. And when we breathe out, prolonged exhalation, that activates our parasympathetic tone, which allows relaxation of our blood vessels. It calms our nerves and helps to truncate the cortisol rush. That's why you see people doing it before a talk, before they're golfing and hitting that putt that's there. So it's all tied together, that they are not separate from a physiologic perspective. There is, of course, the psychological component, but there is indeed the physiologic component. And there's studies that really validate that. The lowering of blood pressure, the decreasing in recurrent heart attack events, the lowering of
Better
cortisol
sleep.
levels. Better sleep. Yes. That's so powerful. So I definitely do it, and I'll start with the breathing and having folks, and I'll tell them, if they're military, I'm like, listen, Navy SEALs do it, right? They do box breathing. I said, come on, let's do box breathing. They're like, what? I'm like, come on, we're gonna do it. I said, you want to be ripped up like a Navy SEAL, right? I mean, come on.
There was an old movie that had Hulk Hogan in it, and he played like some special forces thing, okay? And I don't remember exactly what the movie was, but I'll never forget. He did this thing where he sat on the edge. He was about to like dive underwater, and he was going to be underwater for a few minutes. And he starts taking these really deep breaths. And somebody, I think somebody asked him, I haven't seen this in forever, but I learned how to do this in the pool because of that. He says, I'm oxygenating my blood, whatever that means. So I started doing that, and I could actually go underwater for over a minute as long as I just sat there for 30 seconds and took really deep breaths. And so oddly, Hulk Hogan taught me everything that I know about proper breathing. Thanks, Hulkster.
I
And
love it.
wrestling. Everything you
And
also know about
wrestling.
wrestling.
And
That
Mick Foley.
explains the Lycra underwear and the big belt you like to wear on the show.
Yeah, thank
Hey,
you for
I
that.
earned that belt.
Columbus, phenomenal description and kind of walking through those components. And look, I mean, I think this is the way of the future for medicine and healing, and the understanding of how these things connect, and being able to have doctors and providers and physicians that we put so much of our health in their hands, to be able to understand it and not approach everything as one isolated thing that just needs to be medicated, cut, stitched together, or whatever. But how do all these things make us the beings that we are? And I couldn't agree more that the spiritual component is so important, to be able to define how it is that you exist, that you show up, that you live with love and gratitude. And the more that we can pour that out, it's funny how the science backs that up, that's
Yes.
going to dissipate and go in the opposite direction of manifestation of disease in our bodies and in our minds. And so we're just so appreciative to have you here, and grateful for the work that you do to help others come to that same conclusion and understanding.
Yeah, no, I appreciate those kind words, but listen, I mean, my parents taught me this stuff, and those seeds, I can't say I've always been this person. I can't say my wife would always say that I reflect every component of it. And I tell people when about the pillars of selfish, I said, sometimes I'm elf, sometimes I'm self, sometimes I'm ish. I'm not always all 7 components, but I'm striving. Right. And I
Mm.
think that's the goal. It's like you want to be a person that's chasing after this idea of spirituality, and embracing the components that are important, to allow you to be a benefit, right, to others. So yeah.
Even when you've been betrayed by realizing how much sugar is in ketchup, and ketchup is like your favorite.
I know.
How dare you, Teresa Hines?
Listen, I'm
Dang it, Teresa.
Darn you, Teresa.
I am the biggest sugarholic out there. And so, truth be told, like, I'm into all this stuff. I'm whole food, plant-based, and I believe it's the way. But I've been very meticulous over the past 8 weeks with everything I put in my mouth. Down to measuring it. My wife is like, you're the reason why your son measures things, and I have an 18-year-old son or whatever else. But I'm measuring, I'm tracking, I'm looking at my input, and even the things I'm eating that are helpful. I'm like, gosh, okay, I thought I was eating like 3 pounds of green leafy vegetables, but I'm not. And I thought this, that, and the other. But I start to, as my wife always says, inspect what you expect. So I'm expecting that my health outcome and my nutrition and my exercise, but yeah, I've kind of gone a little bit, as my wife says, a little bit off the deep end here recently, really trying to craft and reshape and look at every component. And it's important, because when I tell other people, you need to kind of do this, and if I'm not doing it fully, if I'm allowing latitudes, how can I expect someone else to?
So you're human. That's good. That's good to know.
Yeah. Yes. I was going to say,
mostly.
you could burn yourself out pretty quick too. You have to give yourself some grace, as you said from the top of the show. Giving yourself some grace.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Listen, forgiveness, that is essential in the concepts that are there. And that's something we don't do very often. It's one thing to forgive others, but forgiving ourselves, right? That's such a hard thing. That's why we have this rumination about what we did in the past, the harms, laying people down, or maybe the atrocities, whatever it may be. But it's like forgiving yourself and moving on is so important to make tomorrow a better day than yesterday. So I'll forgive myself. Now the question is, will others forgive me? I don't know.
Meanwhile, I'm going to go have a Snickers bar. I'm just kidding. I want you to go check out Dr. Batiste's website. You can visit drbatiste, that's BATISTE.com. You can order his book there, Selfish. He's mentioned it a couple of times. It's going to be worth a read. You can also go to his YouTube channel. You can learn more about his seminars at his website. And that's where you're also going to find his social media handles. But don't worry, we're going to have that in the show notes. So you can go to the show notes, find the website there. You're going to find the social media handles as well. Doc, you are absolutely positively one of the most awesomest human beings, the sweetest. And your wife is obviously pretty special too, if she's married to you. So please give our best to her. But before we go, is there anything that we may have overlooked or something that you'd like to mention to the alphas before we go?
I think the only thing I'd like to say is I always want to say thank you for the service for those military veterans that are out there. I think it's so important in terms of what you do for us to be able to even think like this. I don't take it for granted that I live in a country where I'm actually talking about the types of foods that I eat, as opposed to if I'm going to eat food. And I'm talking about sleeping better or decreasing stress, and there's not guns going off and bombs blasting. I don't take that for granted at all. That this is as I tell people, this is a first world problem. This is a first world problem. And so I will always want to make sure I convey that gratitude to everyone out there listening, as well as to you all for like everything you're doing, right? And spreading the word, for inviting me, for making me comfortable. Adam, I'm going to forgive you for making me feel old too as well at the beginning of the show. My forgiveness is more for me than for you, but I forgive you for that moment too. But anyway.
Just see it as two Cowboy fans celebrating some wins.
That's right. But good stuff.
I want to add also that when you promote your book, you're the sell part of Selfish.
I like that. You know what? You are the second person to tell me that.
Dang it.
You were unoriginal, Joe.
You are the second. I have forgotten about that. I was at a conference. I usually try not to promote because usually I'm doing a lot of continuing medical education. Right. And I'm like, you know what? It's not out there. I'm not trying to become a millionaire, but I wanted to get my thoughts down out there. And the guy said, well, Doc, what's the letters of your book? I said, SEL. He said, stop there. Sell the book.
Nice.
It's okay.
But I just want to say thank you so much for visiting. This has been a lot of fun. This has been a very casual, natural conversation. I feel like we could do this for a long time, long enough that you'd be walking around carrying your bamboo. So I do appreciate your time. And I just want to say, I appreciate you for taking care of our veterans and everything that you do. And we wish you the very best. And alphas, please stick around after the break.
Discover the power of your voice and form a deeper understanding of our nation and the principles that shape it. As a participant in the American Legion Oratorical Contest, you'll develop a deeper knowledge of the U.S. Constitution and a greater understanding of the duties, responsibilities, rights, and privileges of American citizenship. As you step up to this academic speaking challenge, you'll learn leadership skills, the art of oration, and have a shot at winning up to $25,000 in scholarships. Seize your moment. Visit legion.org/oratorical and take the first steps towards shaping your future today.
Alphas, thanks for joining us for this encore episode. We hope that you enjoyed this repeat performance.
You can check out all our old episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, or wherever you listen, Joe.
Like the car. But we'll be back next week with a new episode. In the meantime, you can subscribe to our podcast, our newsletter, or send us mail and guest recommendations at legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima. We'll see you next week.